Hi, and welcome to the Stop Chasing Skinny podcast, where every single Tuesday we interview a new guest to talk about topics to help you craft your own fit life. The title Stop Chasing Skinny comes from my own personal tagline of life begins when you stop chasing skinny. You see, I spent many years running many miles, taking many classes, and trying many diets, but none of those worked. So finally, I got down to the business of understanding what really matters. And it's not just about how much exercise you can do or how little you can eat. It's everything else that goes into it. So I created this podcast to help you so you can craft your own fit life. Every single Tuesday, you can listen to an interview with a guest, and now every Friday, you can listen to me a second time, where I take questions you have sent to me, and I spend about 15 minutes answering them. You can even feed your brain this nourishing brain food by listening while you're cooking, commuting, cleaning, walking the dog, or just about anything else. Because that is how we craft a fit life. So let's get on with the show. Hey, and today we have John DiGiovanni. John and I know each other through Oblique Magazine. Listeners, you've probably seen some of my social media stuff with Oblique. It's Charleston's only fitness publication. It is just such a cool magazine. It has really great articles, and I wanted to bring John on today because I wanted people to understand that it is a local magazine. It's such high quality. A lot of people think that it is a nationally produced magazine, but it's locally owned and operated here in Charleston. So the other thing I wanted to do was introduce John's background because it's super interesting. There's so much stuff that he's done. And I wanted to answer the question of why are all the heads cut off of the magazine covers? So welcome, John.
Welcome. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about your background and all the things that you've done to really that have led you here. I mean, I just think it's so interesting.
Well, it's kind of interesting that I came from New York, so right off the bat there, it's a little different. The culture down here was a change for me for the better, I think. I was my senior year at St. Bonaventure University in New York. I came down to visit my brother, who was a real estate controller at Key Island. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do after college. I was a marketing major, and I also was a independent study art student there. And I was just toying with what I wanted to do. Most of my friends were going to go to New York City and that, but when I came down to visit my brother, I really fell in love with Charleston. And my thought process was to really make an attempt to get into the art world here, which I did, but Charleston has a lot of really good artists, and I found out pretty quickly they didn't really need a mediocre one. So I got a job at Seabrook Island, and for 2 years I was a sales manager there, working on bringing conferences and that to the island. I took a part-time job as a doorman at the legendary Cafe 99 on Market Street downtown. And that part-time job led to 9 years in the bar restaurant business in the management capacity. And looking back at that now, I learned so much during those years about business, about people, personalities, because you're not going to get more eclectic groups of people, both customers and employees, than in that business. So I got burned out, though. It's a crazy business. The hours are just nuts. So I did a couple of other things, and then I somehow got into. I was always into fitness and working out and training and stuff like that. I continued to do that from high school on. So I got a personal training certification, and I started training at MUSC, the Wellness Center there. And around that same time, I took a job as an adjunct professor at the College of Charleston. So I was doing those two things, and actually I still train, and I still am as a professor there now. But it was during that time, about 11 years ago, that I started Oblique, and that's how the magazine came about. Yeah.
That is so cool. So, yes, so you're an artist, a professor, a a fitness expert and a publisher. That's pretty darn cool. And you worked in the restaurant business, which you're right. I mean, I think that's where you're going to have the best learning experience ever.
The restaurant business is nuts. But that's funny. I look at it now, too, doing all the things I do now. The hours and craziness of the restaurant business probably was more taxing on me than the different things that I do at this time. So I'm happy the way it turned out, put it that way.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a really great point, because a lot of people, they think that starting a magazine is just fun. Oh my gosh, yeah, it must be so much fun and so easy just to do a fitness publication. That's awesome. But the reality is that most people cannot hack it.
Well, it's a tough business, the thing that allowed me to get into and stay into was that I had no experience whatsoever. If I would have known what it took or whatever, I'm not sure I would have done it. Not that I regret doing it. I'm happy I did. But if I would have known at the time the long hours and all that, I'm not sure I would have traded one business that I was in that for crazy hours long and then just traded for another. But I had the idea of Oblique probably like 4 or 5 years before I started it. Not for me. I didn't think it was a good business for me to get into. I had no experience, but I thought it'd be a great business for somebody to get into. We didn't have any fitness style publications in Charleston, and I thought, man, somebody who can have the experience could really run with this here.
So we're going to take a really quick break, and we're going to come right back. Have you signed up for the 10-day Jumpstart program yet? It's free. The SK Fit Life 10-day Jumpstart program is 10 days of emailed lessons straight in your inbox. All of my best lessons straight to you for free. Go to www.skfitlife.com/free10day. That's FREE10DAY. See you there. And welcome back.
So one day I was in between clients and I picked up the local paper and I saw all these gyms in the Low Country that were listed. They listed all of them. I think it was for the beginning of the year so people could figure out where they wanted to have their New Year's resolution. I'm looking at this list and I'm going, man, somebody really needs to do this. I'm going to look into seeing what it would take to start a magazine. I knew a lot of people in the industry, so I didn't think material was going to be that hard, getting articles and stuff like that. I was training at the time 2 of the top photographers in the city, so photos weren't going to be a problem, but I had no idea about design, getting a designer. So I looked around. I found this guy who was an insomniac, and he started working in the magazine at 2 a.m., which means I had to be available at 2 a.m. a lot of the times. And he lived in a carriage house off of King Street, and I would meet him at 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes, and we would exchange like discs in the street. And Lord only knows what people think we were doing. So like 3 times a week at early morning hours, we're exchanging stuff. He would go back into his carriage house, and I'd take off and work a little bit at home. But and that went on for a long time. I mean, without any experience, it was a learning process. So it took literally about 8-9 months to put the first issue together.
Oh, wow.
And which was fine because there was no rush. I mean, we were just going to start it whenever we thought we were ready to start it. And when the first issue came out, we were really happy with the way it came out. It looked great and this and that. But the problem was now we had 28 days to do the next one, So it was just bedlam from that point on. It was just how are we going to do this? And for like 2 years it was like that. Then we decided that if we went every other month, came out bi-monthly, it would be a lot easier. And that was a big decision that helped out for us. And getting the material, be able to get ahead on things and really start to plan the magazine more. So that was a big decision to make, and it was a good one to make. But it's still a learning process, and it's still testing things and seeing what works and seeing what readers like and things like that. So we're always looking to change and get some new ideas, but we really haven't vary too much from our original intent.
Oh, that's great. And I think that's great insight into, how technology has changed, maybe some of the logistical things that people don't think of when they think of what goes into a magazine. I mean, you picture because you started the magazine has been around for 10 years. That's incredible. And, you guys were exchanging floppy disks like that.
Yeah, exactly, And you're right, technology has made it easier in a sense that, because of doing everything online, being able to price printing all over the country, things like that, it is easier to that extent. The programs are a lot easier to work with. It's a lot harder to make mistakes. There's so many check, points and things like that along the way. So from that point, it's easier. There's always the business aspect of it is tough. There's a lot of really good publications in Charleston, a lot of free publications like ours. So, there's competition and it's just the way it is in any business, and that's fine. It's healthy. But, you always got to try and find ways to really what leads it is the readership. You need the readership to entice the advertising, So I think what we try and do, being a local publication, I think what's great about it is people pick up the magazine because they know people in there. They recognize people, whether they know them personally or they recognize them from a gym or from a doctor's office or something like that. And it is a route that we took. We made a decision early on. We have a couple of writers that write for us, but a lot of what we decided to do is to get the experts to write. So if somebody, a lot of times somebody would write an article that they may not be a writer, and we don't pretend to be anything other than what we are. But what we try and be is something that's informative. So people know a lot of the writers, they know a lot of the people that are being photographed, they know about maybe a program we're writing about or things like that. So I think it's very familiar to people, and I think that's what attracts them to the magazine. And then, of course, the advertising aspect, that you have to convince advertisers that this is the publication to advertise in. And I think one of the stumbling blocks we have, we're fortunate enough that the magazine gets picked up, meaning every spot we put it in, by the time where the new magazine comes out, they're gone. So we go through all of our magazines. The hardest part we have is convincing advertisers that, sure, people, it is a more fitness, healthy lifestyle magazine publication, but all of those people, they don't just go to the gym and run every day. They buy cars, they buy insurance, they buy homes, they eat at restaurants, they buy jewelry, So it's the people that realize this is a really good market for everything, for any kind of advertising. It's not just the fitness world. So I think that's what is kind of a stumbling block, but we're kind of breaking through that, and I think people are realizing that because the magazine is very popular and it gets picked up and it gets kept, that to advertise in it is a benefit to them. So.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. And you're right. It's really cool that the you do see a lot of people who are advertising with Oblique. They're the ones that are writing the articles. And so as a consumer, it's cool because it gives you the feeling that the person that you're purchasing from. So I just think that that really ties into Charleston and our small city very nicely tied together community here. So I just think that's really cool. It's not just some random person that you'll never meet. You'll see this person at the grocery store or on Shim Creek or somebody or somewhere like that.
And it's amazing how many times people write an article, and because if you're a contributor, your photo's in the contributors page and that, and it even kind of surprises me how many times people say people come up to them in the supermarket and say, I saw you wrote an article in Oblique Magazine, and they get blown away by that.
Yeah.
And so it is kind of cool because it's the community, even if you may work out in the gym in North Charleston and you read about something from somebody who wrote something in Mount Pleasant, they're still so tied together. They see each other at maybe road races or kayak events or whatever. So it's a pretty... It's a tight community of people, so they do recognize each other, and it's kind of cool that happens.
It's super cool. And then I love everything that you and I have both done with the Oblique Fit Girls group. I mean, that's incredible. And I'll put the link in the show notes so that you can watch the video of me explaining what the Fit Girls are in more detail. But from just a magazine overall standpoint, I just think that's really cool that we coordinate with some of the advertisers in the magazine to come to the studio. So we're actually bringing people to the studio. We're getting them to experience it. It's additional. It's an additional article in the magazine for that studio. And then as a person who lives here, I mean, how cool is that? You get to try out a free fitness class with all of these other like-minded women.
Well, I remember the Fit Girls. If you remember when I called you, I think you were actually out of town when you took the call, and I mentioned about this idea about getting women together to, as a group, experience different facilities, and you kind of ran with that and you headed it up. But I think what the factor was with this, there is an intimidation to a lot of people to go into a facility.
Yeah.
And it's too bad that they have that, you know. So I think when we got this group of women together and they felt that they were going to go to a private class, no one was going to judge them, and once they did that, I mean, you know from experience, some of the people that you never would have thought would even come to something like this, and it was a lot for them to do it, ended up joining the gym that they went to.
Absolutely.
To try experience. And it's like all of a sudden everything changed once they realized, you know, people aren't staring at you. No one really cares. Everyone's just there to work out. And that was the purpose of it, really, was to, you know, get people to get up and do something. It wasn't, look, if you read a quote and it gets you through a day, that's great. But if you really want to make a change in your life, you really got to get up and do it and go out and do it. And the support group of those Fit Girls was just phenomenal for it, because it's such a wide range of people, both athletic ability, age, income, everything. It doesn't matter. They're just going there to have fun. And the classes have grown.
Yeah.
It started out when we just did a class. Now we have, you know, food samples from different restaurants. We have trunk shows, speakers, things like that. So it's just a great group, and it adds a lot to the magazine, and it just gives us a lot of exposure too, which helps. But I think the best part is, you know, these women get out there as a group and they have a blast. So that was a nice addition to the mag.
Yeah, and that's a great point. People, I mean, I say it all the time, you don't need more motivation, you need more action. And this is what it does for people. You're taking action.
Exactly, yep. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Cool. So let's go ahead and move on to the Oblique Fitness Expo. This is such a cool event. And it changes a little bit every year. And by changes, I mean just exponentially gets better and better. You just do such a phenomenal job. So what is going on with this year's Fitness Expo? Where is it? When is it? What do we need to know?
Well, the Oblique Health and Fitness Expo is going to be held Saturday, October 8th. And this year, we're moving it from Riverfront Park in North Charleston, which is gorgeous. The park is beautiful, a little bit off the beaten path, so we're bringing it to the front lawn of Charleston Southern University, which is right across the street from Trident Hospital there. And, I mean, it's running along the side of the road, but the visual is incredible. So I think that we're bringing it there to really increase the exposure of it. And it's gonna feature a 4-hour group fitness dance marathon. There's going to be a lot of different health and fitness tents going on, different activities, kids activities. There are going to be some competitions going on, fitness types of competitions. But one of the biggest things that we introduced last year, which we're continuing to do, is that the event is benefiting Pedals for Peanuts, which is a local charity that helps gift bikes to kids that don't have the means to do so. So last year, we were able to raise over 220 bikes to children in North Charleston. And we work very closely with the city of North Charleston, who is phenomenal. They are just, the people over there, they care so much about their community. And in fact, what we did was we tied in the North Charleston Police Department, and they were the ones that actually presented the bikes to the kids individually. And what's kind of great about this charity in conjunction with the Fitness Expo is that through businesses and fitness facilities having donation classes and things like that, events where they can raise money for Pedals for Peanuts, we're actually able to purchase the bikes prior to the event. So at the event itself, the kids are getting the bikes, which is really cool, because a lot of times events, there's money raised at the event. Oh. And whatever happens afterwards. But this actually happens at the event.
Yeah.
The event is free, okay? So this year the event is free to the public. Anybody can come in. Anybody can take a class. Everybody can do that. And it's just going to be open to the public. So there's no charge. So, you know, it's a free event, fun event. All the money is raised prior to it. All the donation money, 100% goes to Pedals for Peanuts. It's a wonderful charity, and the main thing I love what it does. It gets kids active. It gets them riding a bike rather than sitting home and being on a video game. But the one thing about the charity that really makes it stand out is that all the money raised goes to buying bikes. There's people donate administrative costs, people donate graphic costs, all that stuff is donated, and all the money that gets raised, you know, it goes right to buying bikes. And we were able to work out a great deal with Huffy where we got a really good price on it. So for every dollar makes a difference. So, you know, we were able to provide a kid with a bike and a helmet for not a lot of money. So every time we raise, you know, if we do something that raises $200 even, that's a lot in buying bikes. So it works out really well. And it's just, you know, there's nothing like seeing a kid get a bike for the first time, and you'd be surprised the kids in need of bikes.
Yeah.
When we met with North Charleston, we said, well, one of the biggest problems that the charity has is identifying the kids that really need bikes, that don't have the means to get a bike. And they said, well, that's not a problem. And we said, what do you mean? They said, well, we have. So I said, well, how many kids can you handle? That's how many can you get? As many bikes as you have, that's how many kids we can get.
Wow.
So realizing that there's, you know, kids that are 8 or 9 years old that have never been on a bike before.
Yeah. So,
you know, so providing that's something special.
I want to go ahead and talk so this is something I really did not even understand until I think it may have been the conversation with you. But a lot of times with charities, because we're hit up for money all the time, with charities, a lot of times the way that charities work, and not every one of them, but there are a lot of them where they will take out administration costs too. So say the charity makes $100,000 in a year. Well, the person who's running it can technically take out as much as they need for their administrative services, right? So they could take out half that money and pay themselves. So that's what I think is super. I mean, this whole charity is just amazing, but I think that's
it's funny you said that,
big
because
thing.
The person who started the charity, that was my first question.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he asked if I could put something about the charity in the magazine, and I was hesitant because, you know, we get hit up a lot for that, you know, for stuff, and we help out when we can, but I'm kind of particular on that. So my first question, I asked him what the charity was, and he told me, and I said, well, that's actually pretty cool. I said, my next question is going to be, though, how much of the money goes to actually buying bikes for kids? And he said 110%. He said it's the worst run charity in the nation because, you know, it's because they put their own money in. You know what I mean? They don't just put their time in. They also help fund it.
Yes.
With their own money. So once he said that, I knew that this is something that we wanted to get involved in. And then once the city of North Charleston saw what we can do, it was really something special. And I think, you know, a police officer presenting a bike to a child is more than just a child getting a bike. You know, it does create just a sense of unity between the police force and the community and things like that. And, those people, the people in North Charleston, from top to bottom, they are so committed to their community. And you hear things like that, but until you work at something like this and you actually see what they do and the amount of energy put into it, it's really incredible. So it's a great win-win for everybody. Yeah. And, we're going to hope to, raise more for bikes this coming October.
Yeah.
So we're going to be having donation classes throughout the Low Country. So hopefully people can go there, and facilities do different things where, you can either take the class for free and donate whatever you want, or there might be a fee to take the class and it all goes to Pedals for Peanuts. So, there's going to be different things, but it'll be in the next issue of Oblique, July, August issue. It'll be a list of where we're going to be having donation classes for Pedals for Peanuts, and it's always a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I'll put all this information in the show notes too. So, especially too, because we have listeners who maybe don't live in the Charleston area,
sure.
And it always feels good to give to something that is a good cause, and that it's a good cause, it's going to the right place. That's just incredible.
Right. So we, and like I said, the bikes come unassembled, so we get a really good deal. And then there you go, the city of North Charleston puts the bikes together.
They make
awesome. An event out of it.
Oh, wow.
And we get a great deal. So for every $40 or $50, a kid gets a bike and a helmet.
Oh.
So small donations mean a lot. And even if if you can give $40, knowing that somebody got a bike because of that.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Last year we had it at Riverfront Park, and we had the bikes on display on the deck overlooking the water. And when you see 220 bikes out there, and you see 25 police officers, donating their time in a line, they take one child by the hand, to the bike, and it's really neat. Yeah, so it was cool.
That's awesome.
Plus, you get to sample some of the top instructors in the city.
Yeah,
doing the group, and this is going to feature the biggest thing is going to be the dance marathon, because anybody can do those classes. Not everybody can do them well. I'll attest to that. But anybody can do them, and they're just kind of fun. And they're type of classes where even if you did the 4 hours, it doesn't seem like you're working out for 4 hours, because the energy is so high, and you're just basically just doing some really cool dance moves.
That's awesome.
So it'll be great. Yep.
So for this 4-hour marathon, could somebody just decide to pop in and out? Could they decide to try to do all 4 hours?
There's no charge.
Okay.
So there's no wristbands or anything like that. There's just going to be an area set where there's going to be the great thing about this area at Charleston Southern, it's almost unlimited. Parking's unlimited. It's right there. And the space for this thing could get as big as it needs to get, as people could come in and out. So you can go in there for 20 minutes, leave, come back an hour later, hop back in. It's really not. It's really designed to just be a fun, easy event to do. So I think this year we're looking to really expand it. Unfortunately, last year was scheduled right around the time of the flood rains. So we had to push it into November, and it was a little too cold and all that. So, so we're kind of really looking forward to doing a little earlier this year. And I think it's going to be really big, especially, where it's at. And, we're adding a lot more health-oriented amenities at the event. Yeah. So, people get their blood pressure checked, things like that there, which is going to be, I think, another nice draw for people to come out there and see. And, of course, seeing the bikes being given away.
Oh, that's so cool. So we're going to take a really quick break, and we're going to come right back. Did you know that SK Fit Life has a men's coaching program? Well, we do. And we will get you or your guy into and out of his workout within 45 minutes. Start building muscle, start blasting fat with me, Stephanie, and we've brought on a new coach, Coach Steve. You can find all that information right on the website under the men's training program. And welcome back. So let's get to the final question, because I didn't ask it earlier, but I feel like it's one of the most frequently asked questions that I get. So why are the heads cut off? I always just tell them he's an artist.
Every time somebody asks me that, you tell them what?
I go, he's an artist.
Every time somebody asks me that question, I turn around and ask them, why do you think we do that? And I get the strangest answers on this. I even had a lady one time email me, and she called me a sexist.
Oh, boy.
Because I cut the women's heads off, and I really couldn't tie the whole...
It's just the eyes, though, really. I mean, the whole mouth and smile is there, and the nose.
Right, the smile, right? So I don't even know how the sexism came into, cutting the heads off. But I get a bunch of reasons, and they're just so funny for me to listen to. But it's strictly a marketing decision. That's how it started. It's kind of nice that it evolved into like an identity. When you see the rack, you can tell it's Oblique right away. But it's just a marketing tool. You have to pick up the magazine
to look in there to see the full face.
Right. It's a local person.
Yeah.
Okay, so so you don't really know. And we're kind of tight-lipped about who the next model is.
Uh-huh.
So when the magazine comes out, to see who that is, you have to pick it up. So once you pick up the Oblique, you're going to read through it. You got to find where the model's bio is, and there's the full shot of the model, and that gets the person to pick the magazine. Once they pick it up, then they're going to read it and keep it, and bring it home, so more people read it. So it's strictly done for marketing purposes, and it works. But it's just funny to hear something different. Oh my God! Why did you cut her face off? Was she not pretty? Was she? It's just not what it is.
My goodness.
The whole cover thing with Oblique is so. I did want to create something where people did want to be on that cover. I'm not going to lie about that. Now there is a perception that we only have 20-year-old girls on there, and probably the average age of a cover model Oblique is probably about 33, 34.
Yeah. And,
there is accomplishments that have to be there. It's not something that we just throw anybody on there. So, the whole thing about it, but the reality of it is, I think with you and Elia being on your NBC show coming up in June, I think you are the 8th and 9th cover model in Oblique to be on some national TV show.
Oh, that is so cool.
After being on the cover. So, it's obviously it's not the only reason that somebody was chosen for something, but it is nice to have 8 or 9 Oblique alumni doing, having done some national things. So,
that's awesome.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. So, so the covers are important to us, and they have a certain purpose, and there's a lot going into who we decide to be on the cover.
Yeah,
and it's something that we think months and months ahead of time. So we already know the covers for the rest of this year, going into next year, and probably even a little bit further. There is a lot of thought process into it.
That's awesome. And I have to say, from personal experience working with you, your magazine, your brand, your message, it is completely 100% in alignment with my message, my brand, the whole life begins when you stop chasing skinny. And you want to focus on that health stuff, but you realize that focus can be taken into so many different directions, and a lot of those directions are unhealthy. And I just love how Oblique has this underlying, it's all about the health message.
Yes, it's so true. And if you remember the first time you and I sat down and talked, I think there was this we both knew what we both stood for.
Yep.
And there was almost like, is this going to be another disappointment? You know what I mean?
I know.
On both ends. I'm like, is this just somebody that wants to be, on the cover and this and that? And you probably wondering what's his objective to doing this? But I think right away we both realized that it was about, the person reading it, and not at certain fitness levels or anything like that. How do you better yourself? How can your, tomorrow be better? What can you do to do that? And I think that, we both knew that was our direction. So it worked out great. People always think, I had somebody say to me one time, how can you always have fitness people in the magazine? I'm like, well, it is a fitness magazine. You know what I mean? It's like anything else. Why would you have houses in a home magazine? But it's, there are things that motivate people, But the reality of it is the most read story that we ever had in the magazine was about a woman who went from 410 pounds to 158 pounds.
Yeah.
And that article, even though it was an extreme weight loss, it showed me and it showed, what people are looking for.
Yeah.
It's not about muscles and six-pack abs and all that. It's not about that. Most people don't even want that.
Yeah.
They want to be healthier. They want to be better than what they are now. And through fitness, if you don't take it to ridiculous extremes, it's very healthy for the mind.
Oh yeah.
And when you get wrapped up in extreme stuff, it's not, and it's not healthy.
Nope.
But when you can just put it into your lifestyle and make it part of your lifestyle, it does so much. I live in Shadow Moss in West Ashley, and about 5 or 6 years ago, they put a mile path on Highway 61. And it's a biking path, a real nice little path. It only goes for about a mile. Every day when I come home, I see families on their bikes or walking or couples, using that 1 mile path, right?
Yeah.
And you wonder, look what that does for some. Look what that does for the family, right? Look at the bridge.
Yeah.
Look. I mean, I can drive over that Ravenel Bridge and I can count 300 people.
Yep.
Well, if someone else is driving, of course, I wouldn't count them when I'm driving. But 300 people on that bridge that may not be doing that if that bridge wasn't there.
Yeah.
And what that does for people and families and parents educating kids about fitness. And, when I teach at the College of Charleston, it's different than teaching in a gym because most people are doing it for credit.
Yeah.
And they're not really thinking about, the fitness aspect of it, the health aspect of it. They want to get a good grade and get through it. So, my goal is if I can turn some of those people into incorporating fitness in their lifestyle from this point on, more power to them. And that makes it worth it. So anything, just like with the magazine, if it can motivate people to get out there and do something and not live by a quote or something to just get you through the day, make a change. It's going to make a big difference for you and the people around you.
Yeah. No, that's great. This has been such a great interview. I'm so glad I finally got you on here. Listeners, I've been telling John for a long time. I'm like, your story is just so awesome. I'm like, you put everybody else's stories in the magazine and everybody else knows everybody else's story. But I was like, people need to know your story. It's really, really cool.
Because I like to kind of stay behind the scenes, but that's okay.
I know, but it's an inspiring story, and I think that people will see it differently too whenever they pick up the magazine, so. Right.
I think hopefully that's good. So, and you were a big part of that, I don't know how much you talk about, Oblique on your show there all the time, but you certainly were one of the best things that ever happened to the mag. I mean, you've been on the cover twice, right?
Yeah.
Fit Girls, you've written so many articles, and plus, you do so many other things that helps bring recognition to everything you do. So that's great.
Well, thanks so much.
And your TV show.
Woo! I'm so excited about that. So,
that's 4 alumni, right?
That's 4
alumni.
Yeah.
Yes, you, Elia, right?
Yep.
Former cover model. She's written for us before.
Yep.
You have Adam, who was an interview about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
And then Stephen, who was recently in there in an article on Coast Guard fitness.
And I have to say, I don't know if I told you this in person, but it was pretty cool. You were talking about how people recognize you from or recognize the cover models. I walked into the class at Longevity, and one of the instructors in there, immediately, he goes, Semper Paratus. And I was like, yeah.
No way.
Yeah, he was former Coast Guard. He had read the article, and he just kept going on and on. He was like, this is so cool. You did a great job with it. Yeah, well, I had a little extra help from Steven.
Yeah. That's awesome. That is really cool.
Yeah.
So that was just an article you wrote. You weren't even in it.
Exactly.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, there you go. Well, cool. Very good.
Very cool. Well, thanks so much.